Hello, I'm Kate Freeman, and this is the Daily Dollop. Of the Daily Dollop, I'm going to dive into the world of ketogenic diets. I'm going to look at whether these keto diets actually work or not, the side effects of following the diet, and for those who are interested, offer a more realistic and sustainable approach. Well, welcome back to the show. This is the Daily Dollop. My name is Kate Freeman. I'm a registered nutritionist and the founder of the Healthy Eating Hub. And fun fact about me is that I like to think of myself as a natural consequence parenter. I find just telling my kids to do things and then saying, "'cause I told you so," it doesn't really work for me. And so I just use natural consequences to teach the children lessons. And so I just let bad things happen to them. Like, not crazy bad. I'll give you an example. So we were out camping at a caravan park near the beach, and one evening after dinner we decided to go for a walk down to the beach from our campsite. And while we're walking past the pool in the caravan park, my son, who was 7 or 8 at the time, said, "Oh, Mum, can I jump in the pool and swim to the other end while we walk past it?" And I said, "Well, you can if you want to, but we don't have any towels with us, and I'm not going back to the campsite to get you a towel. So if you're happy to be wet on the walk, go for it. But if you don't want to be wet, then don't go in the pool." So I'll let him choose, even though deep down in my heart I was like, don't jump in the pool. But had I told him not to, he would have really fought me on that. Anyway, so sure enough, he jumps in the pool, he swims across it, and then gets out the other side, and we're walking to the beach. And he's like, "Oh, Mum, I'm so cold, I need a towel." And he's like, little tears. And I was like, "Oh, darling, I told you we didn't have a towel. It was your choice." And my mum's like with us, and she's like, "Oh, I'll go back and get him a towel." I'm like, "No, Mum, he needs to learn. This is the consequence." Anyway, sure enough, 5 minutes later, he's completely forgot about a towel and he's having a wonderful time. And now I find this technique works for me really well. I'm like, "Well, you can jump in that puddle, Carter, but you will get muddy shoes." Anyway, that is my little parenting tip. Certainly not an expert in parenting, and you just do you. But on to today's topic, which is the ketogenic diet. Huge, massive topic. Have you come across the ketogenic diet on social media? I'm sure most of you probably have. Have you tried the keto diet before, with or without success? Has it made you feel stressed? Are you afraid or confused about carbs as a result? If you are not alone. It is a pretty challenging and confusing diet to follow. So for those of you who are not sure what a ketogenic diet is, it is a very low carbohydrate and high fat diet. So typically it's defined by being less than 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrate a day. To put that in perspective, one apple has about 16 grams of carbs. So it's not very much carbohydrate at all. And then it's typically around 80% dietary fat, which is extremely high fat diet. And then the rest is protein. And so what happens is by restricting or depriving the body of carbohydrates is that you cause a shift in the body's metabolism, and it gets pushed into what's called ketosis. And so that means that instead of burning carbohydrates for energy and burning fats along with carbohydrates, instead it burns ketones for energy. And what happens is that fatty acids are converted into ketones. And anyway, it's very complex biochemistry, and by following the diet, you manage to feel a couple of things, a bit of appetite suppression. So that can obviously help, if you feel like you're out of control of your appetite. So people like that. But it can cause rapid weight loss, so very fast body fat losses, which of course is what it's promoted for. It was typically originally used for managing epilepsy very, very long time ago, and that's where it came from. So essentially, the ketogenic diet's been around for many, many years, had many different guises, many programs have brought it to market. And the problem is that you've got doctors, nutritionists, dietitians, chefs, personal trainers, heck, anyone with an opinion on this just shares it around like they're an expert on ketosis. When in reality, ketosis and just general metabolism is extremely complex. I remember in my studies seeing a picture of metabolism, and it's literally like a complicated network of tunnels and trains and all wind up together. It's extraordinarily complex, and for someone who's not trained to then just tout the benefits of a keto diet is pretty, I don't know, it's just annoying, really, because what happens is they get their biochemistry mixed up and they're recommending to people who really shouldn't be on the diet, or they just don't know anything about it. For example, so the very nature of a ketogenic diet means that you can't eat carbohydrate-rich foods. There's just too much carbs in them. You'd go over the 20 gram a day mark too easily. So they're just omitted straight from your diet. And I remember reading on a really popular influencer's Facebook page who's promoted a carb cycling keto diet, which I was like, that's weird. That's not a thing. But anyway, someone was like, oh, can you do the keto diet while you're breastfeeding? And then someone else commented in response, oh yeah, you can. You just need to include like grains and legumes and fruit. So carbohydrates, which by definition makes it not a ketogenic diet. So if you eat carbs, you're not in ketosis. And anyway, so there's a lot of confusion around the chemistry. People frequently get it wrong. And for the most part, it's actually not necessary for people to follow. But the truth is, in terms of the actual science and when we look solely at weight loss, is that ketogenic diets do work. The very nature of the metabolism being pushed into ketosis means that the body is burning dietary and body fat for energy, and that so long as you're not consuming copious amounts of fat, which is pretty, it's challenging to do because that's a lot of fat to eat, but you will lose weight over time. But the thing is if you keep cheating on the diet by including carbohydrates every couple of days, is that you won't actually be in ketosis and you won't get results. And what you will be is super duper frustrated, and you'll end up feeling really stressed and worried about carbohydrates. So compliance is key on a ketogenic diet. You have to stick to it pretty well perfectly. You can't exceed the carbohydrate intake if you want it to work. A ketogenic diet also needs to have the right amount of protein. Too much protein and you also may not be in ketosis as well, but that's a whole other story. The thing is though, yes, ketogenic diets work, but that's from a weight loss perspective, but that's a pretty narrow view of an individual's health. It's basically assuming that weight loss is the only thing that can improve an individual's health, which is simply not true and extremely narrow-minded. And what about all the other health benefits of carbohydrates like fiber and B vitamins and minerals? What about the fact that carbohydrates are part of our life socially and culturally, and you want to eat them for the rest of your life? What if cutting out the carbohydrates to try and stick to the keto diet then makes you binge and overeat them and then eat too much and you put on weight over time? What if you've had your gallbladder removed and you now can't break down fats in your gastrointestinal tract? The keto diet is not for you. What if you've become constipated on the keto diet, a very common side effect? What else can happen is the really high fat intake is that the fat gets malabsorbed, so not absorbed properly by your gastrointestinal tract, and it leaks out your bottom. That's awful. That's an awful word picture that I just created in your brain then. Anal leakage, it's a thing. So when we look at the actual research, and I've put the link to some research in the show notes that looks at ketogenic diet in overweight and obese people, and you'll see by just reading the summary that it causes rapid weight loss in that population group. So no one's arguing about the effectiveness of ketogenic diets to help people lose weight. However, like I said, it's just making the assumption that weight loss is the only thing that can improve an individual's health, which is simply not true. We also know from other pieces of research, and so if we look at the breadth of nutrition research rather than picking and choosing different research, and if you think back to the DietFits study that I talked about in my carbohydrate episode in season 1, that actually showed and was a landmark randomized controlled trial that it didn't matter whether individuals followed a low carb or a high carb diet, that it was creating an energy deficit and achieving high diet quality that actually helped those individuals lose weight over time. So we know for a fact that you can lose weight eating carbohydrates as well. The other thing to think about is that we also know how important dietary fiber is for maximizing gut health. And fiber is primarily found in carbohydrate-rich foods. And they're so rich in carbohydrate that you wouldn't be able to eat them on a ketogenic diet. They simply have to be cut out. So grains, legumes, fruit, etc. You can't eat them on a ketogenic diet, but they are rich in fiber and help maximize healthy bacteria in your gut. If you recall yesterday's episode, I talk about how important dietary fiber is for growing healthy gut populations, and you simply just can't get that fiber on a ketogenic diet. The other thing is that because there's a number of food groups that are eliminated, sometimes dairy is a little bit too high in carbohydrate too. So 1 cup of milk can have a couple of grams, 5 to 6 grams of carbohydrate in there, is that it can then cause nutrient deficiencies if the diet's not well planned or if you're on it for a prolonged period of time. Constipation is a huge problem on the ketogenic diet, and certainly one that social media doesn't say. It's like, oh, hi, I'm on this new ketogenic diet and I'm shredding fat fast. Oh, I haven't done a poo in like a week, but I'm so thin. It's just silly. So nobody's going to talk about that. And like I said, in other cases where fat is malabsorbed, you have anal leakage because there's just so much fat going in. Your gastrointestinal tract can't create the enzymes to break it down, and it just leaks out your bottom in your pants. Okay, so moving right along, the other thing I just want to finish off with is that there is emerging evidence to say that it also doesn't fix your metabolic issues. So if you are insulin resistant or pre-diabetic or you have type 2 diabetes, of course, removing carbs from your diet improves your insulin levels and your HbA1c, etc., because there's no carbs there to have to process. But the research shows that once the carbs go back in, that the insulin resistance and the metabolic issues are still there. Your body still can't process carbs. And unfortunately, what that does for the individual is just reinforce to them that carbs are bad, when in reality, it's just that they have underlying metabolic issues that haven't been fixed, and the ketogenic diet didn't fix that for them. Lastly is that compliance is super poor on the keto diet. Like I said, it's really hard to achieve. So my take-home advice for you is this. Think about, if weight loss is your goal, think about learning to lose weight in the same way that you intend on maintaining it, so that you're creating habits and behaviors and routines that actually can help you maintain this weight loss long-term into the future. So if you do want to eat carbohydrates as part of your life, then I would suggest that the ketogenic diet is not for you. If you're happy to never eat carbohydrate-rich foods again, and you're under good supervision from your GP and a dietitian to stop the side effects, then go for it. The ketogenic diet is a great option for you. It will help you lose weight, absolutely, if you can stick to it. But if you want to eat carbs and you're finding it hard to stick to, don't fight yourself. Find a more realistic and sustainable approach. You can lose weight and be healthy and eat carbohydrates. So don't fall into the lie that you can't eat carbs. You absolutely can. You just need to find the balance that's right for you. So the Daily Dollop is all about changing the conversation around food, finding that more realistic and sustainable approach. So if you are looking for further help with your nutrition, please reach out to me over my socials. Get in contact. I'd love to help. If you're loving the podcast, please leave me a review. It helps share this podcast with a broader audience. Get that good message out there. Otherwise, team, have an awesome day, and we'll see you in the next episode.